So what I have listed here are the three biggest things that, when I say people, I should actually write dealers. Why dealers or businesses don't use it. And here are the big three as to why, or I shouldn't say excuses, or the reasoning behind their decision not to have financing already, okay? The first one is there is a misconception that you lose money, okay? I can tell you, if you use financing incorrectly, you can lose percentages on jobs. Absolutely, that is absolutely 100% true. In this video, we're gonna discuss how to make sure that that does not happen, okay? And it's relatively simple, all right? So if done correctly, you will never lose money when you're doing financing, all right? Paperwork. Don't have time, okay? This is a legitimate one, all right? If you're a small dealer or if your staff is overtasked or you're an individual or a husband and wife team and you guys just don't have time to do all this paperwork and the financing and the pushing of papers through to banks and all that kind of stuff. Well, the good news is the programs that Kohler uses, which is the Green Sky program, and many other programs out there, are pretty much essentially paper-free at this point in time. Customers can go online, do their application. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for. They can get approved either on their phone or on their own device and be good to go within a matter of minutes. And most approvals with the Green Sky program happen within 10 minutes. Okay, it is incredibly fast. Once that happens, their approval is linked directly to your business, right? So yes, they were just granted a line of credit, and that line of credit is only good for your business. They can't get that and then go to another dealer, all right? So that's a huge benefit as well. Otherwise, they'd have to go do another application at that dealer, and it would be linked to that business account. So there is no paperwork, all right? Everything is done digital, and everything is quick. So that one's gone. The final one here, they don't need it, right? And I hear that one quite a bit, especially in the smaller or rural communities where everybody pays in cash or check. And it truly is, it's not a bad thing. If you got customers that are dropping and you got a steady flow of business, that good for you. You're getting your money up front or right after the job is done, and that's great. The benefits of the Green Sky program, or most credit businesses, is you're going to be able to reach a much wider customer base now. It's not just the people who aren't necessarily, I don't want to use the word lower income, but certainly don't have the spending money or just the free cash to drop 10 or 15 grand on a generator, right? We don't want to be just looking for those customers. We want to be able to expand that base. And financing allows you to do that. It's a lot easier to tell someone who's making the normal $50,000 to $80,000 a year, or even lower than that, this generator, which you're going to need to run either life support, food, you're not going to lose your deer meat in the freezer if your power goes out, and it's only going to cost you, $130 to $250 a month. That's very reasonable to a much broader base of that population than it is to say, hey, you just got to drop me a check for 10 grand. Right? Very different conversations, very different presentation. So it's going to open things up. Now, from a benefit standpoint, also into why they don't use it is they don't realize, end customers, when they're searching for a dealer and they go on a dealer locator or they look in the area and they say, okay, well, this guy has financing, but this guy doesn't. There is a stigma with that, okay? And that stigma is the customer may not have any idea how much it's going to cost them. And they go, well, they have financing, so that's going to make it automatically that much more intriguing to that customer. Okay, well, maybe if it's a little high, I can still work it out with the financing. It's also going to make your business look a little bit more established, right? Because businesses that are just working on cash or check, it's a little bit different, and they have a different customer base than those who are working with a dealer that looks established and has the ability to finance their projects, right? It's just going to look a little bit more up to date, I would say. Now, 20% payment up front, and why that is important is once that customer signs that sheet, you're going to be able to get 20% of the cost of that job up front within the day or the next day, depending on what time of day you submit that paperwork, right? Or excuse me, not submit paperwork because there is no paperwork, what time you put in that application, okay? Now, why that's important is if it's a $10,000 job, you're gonna get $2,000. That's gonna free up your cash flow. You're gonna be able to buy materials, pay some of your laborers for some of the work that they're doing right now, and it's really gonna allow your business to operate a lot more smoothly. Now, if you throw in a like a Wells Fargo floor plan as well, where you can buy on 180-day terms and not have to worry about paying for your generator, you're now basically doing a job and you're paying. You have zero expense for the generator cost, which is going to run you anywhere from, depending on the size, $2,000 up to $10,000. So you don't have to have that upfront cost. Once the job's completed, you would be able to pay off the generator. You'd get the other cash, the other 80% from your cash, and you have basically spent no money up front to do a job, right? So it's a huge benefit and allows you to work your money a lot better and have that extra spending cash around for emergencies and things that are unexpected. So it is really a financial decision that's going to allow you to reach more customers. And it's also going to, not just the lower end customers, high end too, because they're going to be the ones type of people who understand if you're buying stuff with other people's money, it's way better. These people who have the $10,000 to drop, if you gave them an option to only pay a couple $100s a month rather than, hey, just give me a check for 10 grand, they could be investing somewhere else or having a sit in account collecting interest. They're going to be all about that. And that's just people who understand their money understand if you're using someone else's money to buy it without interest, it's going to be the way to go. Okay. First thing I want to go over is the type of payment plans here that are available to our dealer network. So we have our standard, which is basically, think of this one as kind of like a credit card. It's an unsecured loan. So you got a relatively high interest rate here, 17 to 26%, depending on the customer's credit score. You have an estimated payment factor, and that estimated payment factor, what that is if it's a $10,000 job, expect to pay 2.17% of that every payment. So they'd be basically paying $217 a month is how that really comes down, okay? The merchant fee, which looks appealing to the merchant on this one, right, because it's 0%. What that means is you are paying the bank nothing in order to utilize that payment plan, okay? Now, why I say it looks appealing is this, is it's 0% to you guys, doesn't cost you anything, but look what it costs your customer. It's going to be tough to sell, okay? Because you're basically giving them a high interest rate credit card. And if anybody who knows anything about handling their money, that's not an ideal situation, okay? So your next one is no interest if paid in full with no payments, which means there are no payments set up during this trial period. And you have a 6, 12, or 18 months, and this is for customers who are able essentially to space out their thing, who are responsible enough to understand that if they pay before these trial periods, they don't have to pay any interest. Because you see these high interests here, this only hits after the trial period here, okay? Once that happens, your payment factor is again going to be between 2.2 and 2.4%. So on that $10,000 job, 220 to 240%. The merchant fee is going to be 2.2 to 7.75. Now, I know some of you guys right now are looking at that 7.75 and maybe even looking down here and seeing the 15s. They are going to be higher than the other ones, right? But don't freak out yet. Don't turn off. I'm going to explain how those can be utilized to sell the product, okay? Now, no interest if paid in full with payments. It's very similar. You will notice that there is 2 payment factors here, okay? So you got your 1.5 and then your 2.8. What that means is during this trial period, the 6, 12, 18, or 24, they're going to have a lower payment factor. So your minimum payment is going to be $150 out of that $10,000 for 6 months, right? And now I see you're saying over here the term total payment's 84 months. Well, that's a heck of a lot longer than 6 months, right? So if the customer is going to pay this off in time, they're going to have to be aware that they need to go in because it's going to set up as a minimum payment, right? It's not just going to automatically adjust to the whatever the amount is for this particular plan. So again, at the 150 for the trial period. After that, it's going to be 2.18. And then don't worry, we're going to talk a little bit to figure out how I'm getting that 2.18 and how you guys can easily convert the dollar amounts into loan payment numbers and help people plan, okay? So, and then this one, you have 18-month interest only and reduced rate. So you'll notice it's a very low payment factor. I mean, look at that, 33% or 0.33%. So you're looking at $33 on a $10,000 job at this. That is why it is so high over here, because the relationship between the merchant fee and the interest rate is going to be inverse, right? One's got to be high, one's going to be low, or they're both going to be kind of milled out in the middle. All right, and the reason for that is this: is the bank's got to make their money. Okay, so either the customer's paying it or you're paying it up front. Okay, now this is the type of plan, right? It is going to be very, out of all of them, I believe this is the highest one. But you have that $10,000 job, right? And you add that 15%. So that's going to bring it up to $11,550, right, for that job. So if you take 0.33 or 1% of that $11,550 job, they're really only paying $150 for a brand new generator set, okay, every month. So that is something that can absolutely help you sell. And so you noticed how I said 11,500. We're going to talk about how you get into that selling mode and how you present that to the customer, okay? So it's not like you're going to be showing them the cash and then the stuff you have to add, all right? So stick with me and we can talk a little bit about how to make that sell or that presentation to the customer successful, okay? Reduced rate interest, this is pretty self-explanatory, okay? So you have a low rate, and that's just going to be for the life of the loan, all right? So your payment factor is going to be in the middle here, and let's just pick this one here, all right? So 1039. 1039 has a reduced rate of 9.9%, and you got to consider, right? These look kind of high to some people, 9.9%, 11%. If these people needed a loan and they were going to do an unsecured private loan, they'd be looking anywhere from 10 to 14%, okay, for 10 to 20 grand. So these are very reasonable percentage points and going to be very competitive with getting a personal finance loan, okay? Now, the merchant fee. Let's go over here. So this one, let's pick the higher one just to knock it out here, right? So 10%. So we have a $10,000 job and we have 10% merchant fee. That means you are going to be paying the bank $1,000 in order to use that percentage point. But for the customer, again, it's going to be a very low payment. It's going to be 1.15%. So out of that $10,000, they're going to be paying $115 a month in order to use that plan. That's huge. That's a great selling tool. When you go to that customer and you say, hey, I got a 20 kW, it's going to cost you 10 grand, and the customer goes, whoa, that's way more than I thought. You could go, well, that is the about the cost we're going to be looking at, but we can get you payment options to get you in the $120 range. That's going to be like, okay, now I'm listening. It opens up that customer base to you, okay? So that's what you would do. And then equal payments. This one is 0% interest for the customer, all right? This is, again, some of the more appealing ones to the customer. 24, 36, 48, and 60. Payment factors are as follows. I think I beat the heck out of that with how those work, right? So on a $10,000 job, that'd be $417 and then going down the way. The merchant fee, again, is going to be higher. Why is that? Because these are lower interest. And why it's higher for the longer ones is because if they were paying the interest on the longer ones, the bank would make more money. And if it was on the lower ones, the bank would make less money on the interest than they would on the longer one. And that's why the merchant fee is going to be a little bit lower here and get higher as you go up for the length of time. They're making their money back, basically, okay? So that is how the numbers work and how it makes sense, okay? It all comes together. What we're going to talk about now is how to actually calculate those numbers. All right, so how do we calculate the payments for the customer, and how do we figure out what our final cost of the job should be using financing? Okay, and I want to be clear here. Whenever you have financing as an option, and you're a business that has it as an option, you will always tell the customer your financing option first, okay? And if you have multiple financing options, you will always tell them the final dollar amount with your highest priced merchant fee. All right. And the reason for that is you need to protect yourself. Okay. Not because anything shady is going on, but it's just human nature. One of the biggest things that you could run into is a customer who tells you they don't want to use financing. Then the problem is they see that final sticker tag and they get that sticker shock going, whoa, I did not think it was going to be that much, right? And now you're stuck. You told them it was going to be 10 grand and they go, well, I really like it, but now I need to use financing. Well, guess what? At 3.75%, you're now going to be out $375, right? Or you have to tell them, okay, well, now it's going to cost you more because you want to use financing, and that's not a comfortable conversation, okay? So what you will always do is tell them your most expensive financing option first and the accordant dollar amount. And when you present it, you don't want to, with the financing, you don't want to say, okay, it's going to be, $11,500 and then we'll do monthly payments. You want to say it's going to be so many dollars a month. And here is the math on how to figure that out, okay? Now, keeping it simple, you've done all your site visit, you've done all your material add up cost, and you determined it's going to be $10,000. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger for everybody so they can see it. All right, so $10,000, okay? Now, how do we figure out how much that actual cost is going to be? Well, the convenient thing about this is it's $10,000, right? So you got 3.75%. And remember, we write 3.75% like this, 0.0375, all right? Because this is your 10 decimal, so if it was 10%, there'd be a 1 here, or 20%, there'd be a 2 here. Here's your singles, and then your points down here, okay? Now, here is a piece of the puzzle you need to remember. This is actually essentially a credit account, a credit card. Whatever vendor your business is using, you need to know the percentage that they charge you. It's very common for it to be 2 to 3%. I'm going to do 3% just to keep it even, okay, and make the math a little bit easier rather than a 2.5 or 2.25 or something like that. So you also now have a 0.03% to add in, which gives us a total percentage on that job as 0.0675, okay? And that is what will be needed to be added to the total cost of your job to figure out the financing. So how do we do that? All right. With these numbers, it's very simple because we could really just look at it and go, okay, $675, right? But the correct math would be this. So you have your $10,000 times 1.0675, all right? And that is going to give you your total cost of the job using the financing. And that, what the heck was it? My brain just shut off. So we got 10,675. All right, so that is the cost of the job. This is your base. You're not making anything more. You're not making anything less. This is what it is going to cost your company to not lose anything from that money. Now, I know a lot of people will say, okay, well, that's great, but now you just made my job, $750,000 more expensive than the competitor in a tough market. And yeah, that's a big dollar amount, right? But what you have to think about is this. You're comparing apples to oranges when you think like that. If you're saying, well, this guy said that he'd do the job for 10 grand and you're at 10,675, if you just leave it at that and you aren't able to respond to what is happening here, remember the customer is not paying 10,675. They're going to be paying, what's the payment factor? 1.25%. So now you have 10,675 times 0.0125. And that, I'm going to get out my calculator. That is going to end up being $133.44 per payment. So remember, It's apples to oranges. It's not the same thing. So, because that guy may only do upfront pricing, but now you're offering that customer a relatively low payment of $133 a month. That's what you're offering them. You're offering them to keep their money, pay it as you go, and it opens up not only to the individuals who wouldn't be able to afford that $10,000, but now you're standing out from your competitors because you're offering them something that their competitors would not be able to, okay? The next step to knowing how the rates work, how the plans work, and really understanding what you're offering your customers to figure out and let them know what their payment plans are going to be. So for our example, we were using $10,000, and let's see here, that 375 plan, right? So it was this one right here, 375. So we need to figure out what that cost was, which if you remember, 10,000 times 1.675, or if you caught it, good for you, 0.675, right? And that's because you have the 3.375, and what I'm doing is I'm adding the other 3%, which comes from our credit card charge, okay? So I'm accounting for that with that. Okay. So now, take that, and what do we get? That's going to equal $10,675. So that is our cost, right? That is what we expect to make the margins that we have decided we want to make on this job, all right? So now we have to offer it to the customer. And the $10,000 is what our cost is. If we were using this financing plan, though, remember we have to account for that $675. So there is a $675 difference on this job. And really we have to determine which number do we present to the customer first. And as you've heard me say before, you always tell them this number, okay? It's this number and whatever its payment plan is, okay? That's going to be the important thing. So your total payment will be $10,675, and then your monthly payment is going to be this number times, let's go back to that 3.75, where'd you go? 1.25%, okay? So I am not a genius, so I'm going to get my calculator out. $133.44 per month, okay? Now, to a lot of people, that's going to sound a heck of a lot better than, hey, please write me a check for $10,000, okay? And that's really what we're going for, is really, we're getting those people who don't have the ability to drop this kind of money. We are allowing them to get into that world where we can offer them a product, okay? Now, why it's important to do this one first, all right? It all goes back to the initial conversation. Let's say the guy calls you, you ask him, hey, are you planning on using financing? He says, no, I'm going to pay you in cash. So now you offer him your $10,000 cash price, because that's what he's going to be using, and he goes, whoa, that is way more than I expected. So now I'd really like to hear about your financing options. Well, now you're kind of in a pickle, because you either have to do it, give him the financing, and lose $675 on that job because it would be taken out of the $10,000, or you're going to have to basically tell the customer, well, that $10,000 was the cash price, but now I'm actually going to have to charge you more in the long run. And that's an uncomfortable conversation, okay? So that's why, as long as you say, hey, Mr. Customer, the job is $10,675. That is going to be your cost. But because you mentioned that you wanted to do financing, or excuse me, that you wanted to pay cash, we're actually going to cut you our cash discount and take this $675 off the top and give it to you for 10 grand. And now, if he goes, either way you're going to win, and why that is because he's either going to go, wow, you're the coolest dealer in the world who's giving me a sweet discount right up front for paying in cash, or you're going to have the guy who then at that point goes, wow, $10,000 is a lot more than I expected. I'd like to see financing. So then they're prepared for that number because you just told them that was the original cost. And so it doesn't seem like you're being shady or adjusting the cost. Because some customers will be intelligent and they'll understand where that money difference is, but others won't, okay? Especially different parts of the region of the United States, that money will get kind of touchy, and it's a really uncomfortable conversation that you can prevent by always presenting the financing option first.